Hi, I'm Cecilia. Welcome to today's study of Genesis. For more of me, find me on my Facebook, my Instagram, my LinkedIn, and also my website. With them, you'll know more of who I am and what I stand for. Thank you for joining me in today's study of Genesis. Today, we're going to continue on with the book of Genesis as we have been studying it from Genesis chapter 1. Now we are in Genesis chapter 20. Last week we finished on Genesis chapter 19, and from chapter 19 we learned of the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah because of the sin that they had indulged in. You know, as we read from Jude 7, that they had indulged in a natural desires and pursued a natural desires, you know, and we know from the experience of what we have read in chapter 19 that they were homosexuals. The men of that city desired fellow men. We saw how they wanted to take the two angels who had visited the house of Lot. And we also know that Lot and his family were rescued from that destruction that fell upon the city of Sodom, and they were allowed to flee for their lives. And we know that instead of going to the hills, Lot asked that he should go to the small town called Zoar, and there he found refuge with his family. But we know that his wife did not make it to that town because she looked back and she was turned into a pillar of fire. They were told that when they ran, they should never look back or try to figure out what is happening behind them. And also we know that the Lord had determined to destroy all the cities of the valley. Only the town of Zoar was left where Lot was. Then after that, Lot decided that he was afraid. He probably thought that he would not be safe in that small town called Zoar, and he and his two daughters went and lived in the hills in a cave. And we also learned last week of what the daughters did to their father. They defiled and violated their own father by sleeping with him while he was very drunk, that Lot was not aware when those daughters came in and when they went out. That is what the Bible tells us. And we know that through that defilement, those two daughters conceived, and one of them gave birth to Moab, and the other gave birth to Ben-Amin, whose Moab is the father of the Moabites, and Ben-Amin is the father of the Ammonites. And that is what we learned in the previous few weeks of the study of Genesis, exclusively in chapter 19. So you can go and check out the rest of the study of Genesis, because we have done chronological study of the Bible, of the book of Genesis. And today we're going to start in chapter 20 and see what went forth from what we left off in chapter 19. So the word of God says in Genesis chapter 20, I'm going to read from verse 1 to verse 18. It says, From there Abraham journeyed toward the territory of the Negeb and lived between Kadesh and Shur, and he sojourned in Gerar. And Abraham said to Sarah his wife, She is my sister. And Abimelech king of Gerar sent and took Sarah. But God came to Abimelech in a dream by night and said to him, Behold, you are a dead man because the woman whom you have taken, for she is a man's wife. Now Abimelech had not approached her. So he said, Lord, will you kill an innocent people? Did he not himself say to me, She is my sister? And she herself said, He is my brother. In the integrity of my heart and the innocence of my hands I have done this. Then God said to him in a dream, Yes, I know that you have done this in the integrity of your heart, and it was I who kept you from sinning against me. Therefore I did not let you touch her. Now then, return the man's wife, for he is a prophet, so that he will pray for you, and you shall live. But if you do not return her, know that you shall surely die, you and all who are yours. So Abimelech rose early in the morning and called all his servants and told them all these things. And the men were very much afraid. Then Abimelech called Abraham and said to her, What have you done to us, and how have I sinned against you that you have brought on me and my kingdom a great sin? You have done to me things that ought not to be done. And Abimelech said to Abraham, What did you see that you did this thing? Abraham said, I did it because I thought there is no fear of God at all in this place, and they will kill me because of my wife. Besides, she is indeed my sister, the daughter of my father, though not the daughter of my mother, and she became my wife. And when God caused me to wander from my father's house, I said to her, This is the kindness you must do me. At every place to which we come, say of me, He is my brother. Then Abimelech took sheep and oxen and male servants and female servants and gave them to Abraham, and returned Sarah his wife to him. And Abimelech said, Behold, my land is before you, dwell where it pleases you. To Sarah he said, Behold, I have given your brother 1,000 pieces of silver. It is a sign of your innocence in the eyes of all who are with you. And before everyone you are vindicated. Then Abraham prayed to God, and God healed Abimelech and also healed his wife and female slaves, so that they bore children. For the Lord had closed all the wombs of the house of Abimelech because of Sarah, Abraham's wife. And that is the word of God for today. And yeah, we have read a lot, and from what we have just read, what can we observe from it? What is the Bible telling us? We can firstly learn that Abraham decided to move from the oaks of Mamre. Before, when the destruction happened to Sodom, he was living around the oaks of Mamre, and we are told here that he moved from there and went with his family to a land called Gomorrah, whose king was Abimelech. And we also learned that he told Sarah to present herself to other people as his sister and him as her brother. So that was their plan. They had forged it. And remember also back with the study of Genesis, we learned of him also telling others that Sarah is his sister, like when he went to Egypt. We are told now in chapter 12, where Abraham went from the land of Canaan into Egypt because of the famine that was there. And we are told in verse 11, when he was about to enter Egypt, he said to Sarai his wife, I know that you are a woman beautiful in appearance, and when the Egyptians see you, they will say, this is his wife. Then they will kill me, but they will let you live. So you are my sister, that it may go well with me because of you, and that my life may be spared for your sake. That is in chapter 12 when they went to Egypt. So we see even in chapter 20, later on, Abraham is still afraid. He thinks that the men of Gomorrah will kill him because of his wife, who was very beautiful. And at this time, Sarah was around 90 years old, but still her beauty was so striking that people would still want to kill Abraham because of her. Or probably it was just in Abraham's mind that people would want to kill her. But also her beauty is present because Abimelech took her to be as his wife because of how beautiful she was, and she was 90 years old. I want to be that when I'm 90. Still striking, beautiful, yeah. And that was how who Sarah was. And you can also observe that Abimelech took Sarah for himself as his wife because he was told that she was Abraham's sister. But God stopped Abimelech from sinning against him. We see that in verse 6, where God tells Abimelech in a dream, it was I who kept you from sinning against me, therefore I did not let you touch her. So we can say that probably that night that God spoke to Abimelech was not the night that Abimelech took Sarah, because it must have taken some time, because if God is the one who stopped him from taking her, from sinning against, it was I who kept you from sinning against me, therefore I did not let you touch her. And yeah, so like we are told verse 3 by night, we're not told which night exactly. And also from verse 17 and 18, where we are told that the wombs of the women in Abimelech's home were closed, meaning that it was not that same night. So it must have been a while, so that for them to ascertain that these women were trying to bear a child, but they were incapable of doing it. So it must have been a while, like Abraham and Sarah and the family must have lived in Gomorrah for quite a long time, or quite some time, in order for the wombs of the family of Abimelech to be closed to a certain point that they realized that they are not able to bear children. So it was not that the same night they arrived, in the same night the wombs were closed, and the same night God spoke to Abimelech. And also for God to have kept him from sinning. Sinning is sounds like a continuous word, so that the time that Sarah spent in Abimelech's home or house, he was not able to touch her, or as the Bible says, to touch her. So that is what we can learn from, or we can observe from the word of God. And also we see that Abimelech, in the conversation to God, told him that he is an innocent man because Abraham is the one who lied to him. Like, he did not do it out of selfishness or out of pride or out of greediness to take Abraham's wife, but it's because Abraham told him that Sarah was his sister. And God acknowledged his integrity and told him that it was God, who kept him from sinning. And also God instructed Abimelech to return the wife to her husband, that he may live. If not, he will die. So we see that the consequence of sin, God is telling Abimelech that it will be death. If he continues keeping another man's wife, he will surely die. And also we see that Abimelech told his people in the morning what had happened, and they were much afraid of that. And Abimelech called Abraham and asked him why he did what he did. And Abraham defended himself, saying that actually Sarah is my sister. Although we are not of the same mother, we are of the same father. So in a way, what Abraham said was true. But he did not. He also omitted a truth that Sarah was actually his sister. So you can see his white lies here, that knowing he did not reveal the whole truth. He hid a truth because he was afraid. You know, we can see like how that's how sin happens, like how this is how he sinned, because although it is true that they are sisters, but it is also true that they are married, and it is also true that he hid that fact because he was afraid. So he told him that, and yeah, Abraham perceived that the people of Gomorrah had no fear of God and thought that they will kill him for Sarah. He then came up with this white lie to like hide the fact that Sarah is actually his wife, and that is sin. The white lies that we say that look nice and true at the surface, but when you go deep within, there's actually a lot more hidden in it. And also Abimelech then gives Abraham a lot of gifts and also servants. You know, he gave him female and male servants, and allows him to dwell wherever he pleases, because God had told Abimelech that Abraham is actually a prophet of God. We see that in verse 7. Now then return the man's wife, for he is a prophet, so that he will pray for you and you shall live. But if you do not return her, know that you shall surely die, you and all who are yours. So he was told that Abraham was a prophet, so he allowed him to live wherever he wanted in his kingdom. And he also returned Sarah to Abraham. He obeyed the word of God. I'm sure he did not want to die, because God told him that if you do not return this wife to her husband, you will surely die. And he gave gifts like 1,000 pieces of silver to indicate that she is pure. He did not touch her. So that also indicates that Sarah must have stayed in the home for quite a while, for quite some time. And that to prove, also that was to prove her innocence and vindicate her, as he says in verse 16. It is a sign of your innocence in the eyes of all who are with you, and before everyone you are vindicated, so that Sarah will not have to be looked at with side eyes by the women in that country, like, oh, you slept with the king, or you came from the king's house, you know, like, so that to show the people and to tell the people, like, it's a sign so that people may be aware and see that actually she was not touched by the king. And also we can learn that Abraham prayed. We can see that Abraham prayed to God, and Abimelech and his household got healed, so that they bore children. We read that from verses 17 and 18, that they were all barren, his wife and also his female servants. And the Lord was the one who had closed their womb because of Sarah. You can also read that from verse 18. For the Lord had closed all the wombs of the house of Abimelech because of Sarah, Abraham's wife. So because of the sin that he had done, Abimelech unawares, because of the white lie that Abraham had concoctioned, that Abraham had formed, so it affected his family, so that his wife and his female servants were not able to bear children. So that is what is it called? The outcome. That is the outcome of how white lies, the consequences of white lies. So they're not like, God does not overlook. Like, even Abimelech was punished for a sin that he did not know was actually a sin. From that, what can we learn from the passage? We can learn that Abraham did explore the land of Canaan. We are told that he went from the oaks of Mamre to Gera, and also he probably moved from the oaks of Mamre because he did not know what had become of his nephew Lot. We see that Lot, after going to Zoar, he also went again to the caves. And so probably Abraham was waiting for a while for Lot to come because of the distraction, because probably Lot would want a place to live in. At this time, he had lost everything, because all that he left with from Sodom was him and his 2 daughters. But probably Abraham waited and Lot did not show up, and he decided to move ahead and go to Gera. Yeah, that is, yeah. We can also learn that Abraham was aware that the men of Canaan did not fear God, like we are told how the excuse he gave to Abimelech, that he saw that the men of Gomorrah were not God-fearing. That is why he forged a white lie, so that he may not be killed for his wife Sarah. Sarah, we are told, was very beautiful and men loved her, or loved to see her, or to look at her, or want her to be their wives, or yes, their wife. Yeah. We can also learn that Abraham still had some fears. He did not fully take in that God will protect him. For him to come up with this white lie to protect his life, he feared for his life because he thought he will be killed. And also God had promised that wherever he sets his foot in Canaan, God will be with him. So there was that protection of God. But he still had not grasped that aspect that God will protect him. That's why he still walked in fear, or moved in fear. And we also learn that God does speak. Abimelech heard the voice of God loud and clear. He knew that it was God who told him. That's why he told his people, and his people were afraid of it. And he obeyed the words of God, because he returned the wife to the husband, and he also respected the prayers of Abraham, so that because God had told him that Abraham was a prophet. And God also told Abimelech that the consequences of his sin will be death. He told him that if you do not return her, know that you shall surely die, you and all who are yours. So God had given him the consequences of staying with another man's wife, or living with another man's wife, was that death will come to you, and everyone who belongs to you will die. And also you can learn that Abimelech did have courage to plead with God for his life. He did not just take he did not just sit there and hear God telling him, but he also did plead for his cause. He says that in verse 4, now Abimelech had not approached her, so he said, Lord, will you kill an innocent people? Did he not himself say to me, she is my sister? And she herself said, he is my brother. In the integrity of my heart and the innocence of my hands, I have done this. So Abimelech was very strong, and also courageous to plead for his cause, so that he did not let the consequences of what had happened just fall on him without pleading his cause. So he pleaded his cause before God for his life. And then you can also learn that God said that if his commands were followed, it will be well with him. That if he obeyed and returned the wife, it will be well with him. He will not die. We can also learn that it is wrong to take someone else's wife. God does not approve of it. We see that with the case of Abimelech, and God telling him that the consequence of his sin was death. It is well for those who obey the commands of God. The little white lies also have their consequences. Abraham had his wife taken away from him, because he forged this white lie that she was his sister, admitting the fact that she was also his wife. And Abimelech had the women of his household wombs closed because of that lie. You see that his wife and the maids, female servants, were unable to bear children because of the lie. So the white lies that we think will get away with this also have their consequences. The other thing we can learn is Sarah was indeed Abraham's sister, but withholding the fact that she was his wife was wrong. You can also learn that God still chose Abraham as his prophet despite the fact that he lied. We see that he is a forgiving God. He forgave him for the wrong that he had done, and for not protecting his wife in the first place. Like, how can you let your wife be taken by another man? And also because of his fear, like God told him to be courageous as he walks through the land of Canaan, but he was fearing for his own life. And God forgave him for all that, and he still called him his prophet. And you can also learn that Abraham did receive favor from Abimelech because of him being a prophet of God. So there are benefits to being a prophet of God. He was given a lot of cattle, and also he was given female and male servants to help him in his life or his work or whatever else he did. And also he was told that wherever he pleased to live in that land of Gomorrah, he will be able to live in it. Like, he was given a full area to choose where he would want to live or to pitch his tent. We can also learn that the Lord is the one who brought calamity upon Abimelech's household, because most of the time people would blame the devil, will blame circumstances, will blame people who do not like in the family that they had cursed you or they had done witchcraft on you. But here we learn that it is the reason why the wombs of the women in Abimelech's home were closed is because God had done that. It had nothing to do with the devil. It had nothing to do with demons. It had nothing to do with evil spirits. It had nothing to do with evil people in the family. It had nothing to do with bad eyes. Sometimes it is God who closes our womb. Yeah, so it is better to run to God and ask why, and ask for him and plead with him the way Abimelech pleaded with him for his life, so that God may rescue you. Do not blame, point fingers somewhere else, and forget that God is the sovereign one. What he plans to do, it will be done. How can we apply it to our day-to-day life? Firstly, do not lie to save yourself, like Abraham did. It always has its consequences. And as God said to Abimelech, the wages of sin is death. So be aware of that, and don't lie just to save your skin. Live courageously, knowing that the Lord is with you. For in him we are more than conquerors, And also he says, Paul writes and says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. So trust in him, trust in his power, trust in the strength that he will give you, and do not lie to save yourself. What you can also apply is respect and honor the matrimonial bed or vows. Do not take someone else's husband or wife, because that is sin against God. We see it from how God viewed what Abimelech had done. He viewed it as sin, and a sin that is viable for death. That's how he values marriage vows. That's how he values marriage, so that we do not take someone else's wife or husband, think that we are doing a good thing, or think that it is okay or it is all right. But adultery is sin against God, and God sees that sin that is viable for death. So honor the matrimonial bed, or honor marriage, and do not desire someone else's husband or someone else's wife. We can also apply that honoring other people's spouses brings honor to them, the way Abimelech took back Sarah and gave her like 1,000 pieces of silver to vindicate her and to prove her innocence amongst people, so that to honor her, and so that people will also respect her, that she did not go and in the act of adultery. That she did not perform the act of adultery. And you can also apply that the commands of God stands to be the same. Sin leads to death, and also, as I have said, adultery is sin. So the consequences of sin, as it was in the beginning, it is still now. The consequence of sin is death, or the wages of sin is death. So as you form those little lies that you cover up, that you think no one will notice, God has noticed them, and God will one day tell you, as he's telling you right now through me, that the consequence of what you're doing will be death, and sin will lead to death. I do not think that God overlooks these white lies. He sees them, and learn from Abraham and learn from what had happened to the house of Abimelech, and act in caution. Also, you can argue your case with God. He does give room for that, so that you don't let just fate happen to you. Don't let just things fall onto you, like in the assuming that it is just fate, that God will do what he wants to do. Let me just sit and wait and see what will happen. But have courage like Abimelech. You know your case. You know what happened. So you can argue your case before God. You can plead for your case before God and ask God, like, this happened, what about this, what about this? The same way Hezekiah, king of Judah, pleaded with God. Like, he was told he was going to die, but he pleaded with God, after all I have done, after all this that I've done on your name, why are you letting me die like this? But he was given 15 more years because of how he pleaded his case with God. So don't just sit down and not pray and let fate carry its course and think that whatever will happen, I have no control, I have no say in it. But you can always plead your case before God and argue your case before God. God gives room for that. And also you can apply that, do not let fear lead you to live a lie. God will protect you. Like, trust in God, trust in his protection that he will lead you, and live a life of truth, because God is truth and he requires of us to live in truth. And also, on our own, if what we would indulge in sin, pray for God's strength to keep you back from sinning, because as Corinthians writes, no temptation has overtaken you that is not common to man, but in each one of them, God will give you a way of escape. So it is God who strengthens us, or gives us the wisdom, the courage, the knowledge to overcome temptation, and to overcome sin, and to champion over tests that come our way. So pray that God will keep you from sinning, the same way God is the one who kept Abimelech from sinning. Also, we can apply that God is the one who brings about calamities. Do not rush to blame people, the devil, as I have said, the demons, the evil spirits. It could be that you only need to seek God. Seek after God, seek after answers, and God will give you an answer as to why what is happening to you will happen. Sometimes He'll tell you why, sometimes He will not. He has His own ways of doing things, but as to us is, don't always point fingers at someone else. It could be that God has caused it to happen to you. So pray to Him that He will lift whatever troubles that is on your way or on your shoulders away from you. The other thing is there is blessings that come to being a man of God. He can cause even evil kings to bless you. So we see that also in the example of Abraham, that he caused Abimelech to bless Abraham with gifts, with cattle, with even people as servants for him, and also gave him a whole land before him to choose wherever he wanted to stay. So there's blessings that comes with being a man of God if you walk in truth, and also if you obey His laws or you obey His voice, in the case of Abraham. Also, we can apply that those who confess their sins do find forgiveness. Those who confess their sin do find forgiveness. We look at it from the manner of Abimelech. He confessed, like, God, this is what happened, but it happened because Abraham did this and lied this, and I'm an innocent person, and God forgave him for that and also healed his family for that. That is what I have for you for today in the study of Genesis. If you have more that you have observed, you have learned, and you want to share with us, please write it on the comment section. And I thank you for joining me today. Until we see each other next week, goodbye and God bless you.